getting everybody's story, just kind of a start in terms of what got them interested in psychedelics and just the mindset behind it. Jon, can I get your story as well?
Yeah, so I grew up in a physically abusive household, mentally abusive, and my whole life I was focused on just making it to the NFL. I'll make it to the NFL. Once I made it to the NFL, my life would be great. Things would be fine. My family will, we'll finally get the family right. And you make it to the NFL and you realize, like, things are only going to get worse. Now you have money. Now everyone's trying to dig in your pockets. The family aspect gets worse. My mother's calling me, threatening me to go to ESPN and say, I'm on drugs or do like stuff like that. And then I ended up losing my best friend my second year in the league, a person who was like my brother that knew everything about my life and the one person I could always lean on. And up to that point, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything. When he passed away, I got into a real bad phase with alcohol and marijuana. I was having suicidal thoughts. Just became a shell of myself. And it wasn't until I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast and Rick Doblin was on it, and that kind of opened up my mind to other methods of healing. So I started, microdosing mushrooms, and then the big thing for me was DMT. Just sitting in my room with the thought of, I want to be better, and why do I feel this way, and how can I be better for my wife and my kid my daughter at the time, and so that was my introduction, and I started doing DMT probably 2 or 3 times a year, and for me, DMT has kind of been my lifesaver.
Definitely, and thank you, obviously, continuing to share. Jon, I do want to ask, because I know you said you were dealing with a lot on your mind in regards to like family and all the different, like, you could say distractions or things that were just like holding you down. You recently were in the Super Bowl not too long ago, and that's about as big as it gets in terms of like having family involved and all the hectic going into the biggest game of the year. How were you able to cope during that process?
Yeah, what I've learned from DMT and psychedelics is like, it's okay to, I cut my mother off. I love her to death. I forgive her. Like, I'm able to have forgiveness to her. But with my 3 young kids, I'm just not in that situation. We cannot have her around. I frequently, try to still help her, even though I've cut her off. I send her money. I try to get her to do some plant medicine. She is struggling she's a meth addict. So there's struggles with that. But with the Super Bowl, honestly, it was my 9th year in the league when I went to the Super Bowl. If it was, earlier on in my career, I believe it would have been a lot mentally. But I was in the mind space where I was actually able just to enjoy every minute of it. And people always ask me, like leading up to it, did it feel different? I was like, no. The only time it actually felt different than a regular game was standing on the sideline right before the game started when, they had I think it was like Post Malone and someone else singing and staring across, it was the Chiefs again. Me and Jordan have a long history with the Chiefs. Was, standing across from them, again, that was the only time it felt different, was just right before the ball was kicked off.
Okay. Were these conversations you guys were having just together, or was it just something where you kind of didn't know for a while.
Yeah, like Jordan said, it wasn't really a conversation you could have in the locker room at that time. I, brought it up to some guys, and everyone looked at me like I was crazy. There was one other Buffalo guy that I had gotten to do DMT with me. We ended up doing it, every year before training camp, just to kind of set our mind right. But the stigma of psychedelics, it was, that's something that you didn't want to have on you being in the NFL in the locker room, especially like if the trainer's here or gets back to like the upstairs people, they're gonna think you're a drug addict or something. Wow. So you kind of kept that on the down low. I will say my last couple of years that I feel like that has changed, whether it's because of the Aaron Rodgers doc or it might have just been because I was in San Francisco. There's a number of players over there that, while it's not like ibogaine or ayahuasca, it's more like mushrooms. That was kind of the conversation in our locker room.
Okay, thank you for that.